chocolate chip cookies as well as chocolate chip cookie dough. I'm really excited about this because I only had this idea maybe like a couple weeks ago, but instead of turning it all into cookies, you make the dough and then you freeze it into little balls, and then you can put it in your smoothie bowls, and it tastes like, you know, that ice cream that you used to eat when you're little, or maybe you even eat it now. I'm trying to explain chocolate chip cookie dough with the little cookie dough chunks, but I just could not get the words out. I don't really eat it now because the cookie dough ice cream is usually not gluten-free or dairy-free. But you know when you bite into ice cream, you get that like little cookie dough bite? I love that. So when I thought about freezing these and putting them in my smoothie bowls, I was so excited because it felt like I was a kid again, eating cookie dough ice cream, only I wasn't shitting my pants or laying on the floor in pain for hours and hours because I am allergic to dairy and I'm also gluten-free. But I didn't realize that when I was a kid, so I just ate lots of stuff that would just make me feel really sick. But the good thing about this chickpea cookie dough is that it's dairy-free because it's vegan, it's almost refined sugar-free except for the chocolate chips, and it is gluten-free because the batter is actually made from chickpeas. So you can feel really good about eating these cookies, and you don't even have to feel bad if you eat the whole batch. When I first went gluten-free vegan around 24, I lived in this really cool place called Whistler. If you haven't heard of it, I would definitely check it out. It's basically like an adult Disneyland. In the winter, it's a huge ski resort. In the summer, it's a biking resort. It's full of restaurants and bars, and you can go bungee jumping and whitewater rafting. There's lots of trails. There's literally endless things to do, and I highly recommend visiting there. Anyways, they had tons of gluten-free and vegan cookies and muffins and stuff like that I would go and just binge out on all the time. But I moved away from Whistler, and the place I moved to did not have all these options. So I started baking these cookies because they're simple, they're easy, they're quick. And now let's get started. For this recipe, you're gonna need some dates, or instead you can use maple syrup or coconut sugar. I get my dates in the baking section or in the bulk section, and I shop around to find the cheapest kind because there's lots of different dates and they all cost different prices. We also need a large can of chickpeas. I have the no salt added version, but if you have the salt version, don't worry, you won't taste it in the cookies. Depending on how strong your blender is, you might need some soy milk, or you can get almond milk, coconut milk, or oat milk. This is just to help us blend our batter. But if your blender is really good, you won't need this. Then we need some baking powder. Make sure you get baking powder, not baking soda. If you put baking soda in it, it'll taste salty and your cookies will not rise. I've made that mistake before. We'll use some vanilla extract. I use pure vanilla extract. If you would like to buy artificial, you can use artificial. It costs a little bit less. And then you want to get some natural peanut butter. Try to get one that doesn't have added oil or sugar. You'd be surprised how many peanut butters have it. And then we need some vegan dark chocolate chips. So make sure you get ones that are dairy-free. And then you need parchment paper to cook on, and make sure you get parchment paper, not wax paper. They look the same, but they are different, and you don't want to bake on wax because it makes your food taste disgusting. And then we need a baking sheet. Mine's a little burnt from not using parchment paper sometimes. And we need a blender, or you could use a food processor instead of a blender. I have a Vitamix, but I personally find that the NutriBullet or the NutriNinja work really well. First things first, we're going to preheat the oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Now we're going to grab our kettle and fill it up with water and turn it on, and we're going to heat up water so that we can soak the dates to make them soft and use them as our sweetener. You don't have to do this step if you're going to use coconut sugar or maple syrup instead of dates as your sweetener. So next we want to open our can of chickpeas, and then we're going to bring them over to the sink and give them a little bit of a rinse. You want to get all that juice off. So now we've got our chickpeas all ready, and we're going to take our hot water and pour it over the dates and let those soak for about 5 minutes. This will make the dates soft, and so they'll be easier to blend. We're going to add everything to our blender or food processor, starting with the chickpeas, followed by the dates. And I'm going to add almost all the soaked dates, but I'll leave a couple behind. And after everything's blended, if I want it more sweet, I'll add in more dates then. It's better to start with less so you don't over sweeten it at first. And then if you're not using dates, you can add your maple syrup or your coconut sugar. I would add 1/3 cup each, and then after we're done blending it, if you want it more sweet, you can add more. The texture will be a little bit different if you use maple syrup or coconut sugar, but it'll still taste good. Next, we're going to add our vanilla extract, and I just poke a little hole in the top so I can squirt it out like this, and we're going to put in 2 squirts. And if you don't have vanilla extract, you don't have to use it. It'll still taste good. And then we're gonna add in 2 big spoonfuls of natural peanut butter. And you just wanna make sure your peanut butter doesn't have added oil or added sugar because you really don't need that. You could also use almond butter instead of peanut butter. Now we're getting ready to blend, and if you don't have a high-powered blender, you're gonna wanna add a little bit of soy milk to get things blending. Don't worry if you don't have the stick thing. You can just take the lid off your blender and move things around with a spoon and then keep blending and add little bits of soy milk if you can't get it to blend just till it starts blending. If you accidentally make it too liquidy, you could always add in more chickpeas. And your batter should look like this, nice and thick like real cookie dough. Unless you use maple syrup, then yours might be a little runnier. Also, if you blend it and you think that it's not sweet enough, just add in some more dates or coconut sugar or maple syrup. Or if you think it doesn't taste as peanut buttery as you're liking, just add a little bit more in. It'll taste fine in the end and they'll still bake okay. That's what I love about these cookies. And you might still like stuff a little bit sweeter, so feel free to add extra sweetness. I'm going to turn half of this mix into raw cookie dough balls, and then I'm going to turn the other half into baked cookies. So I'm putting half in here, and then I'm going to mix in as many chocolate chips as I want, and you can do as little or as many as you like. Just go with whatever you're feeling. I also want to tell you a little bit about chocolate chips. So these chocolate chips I bought because they don't have milk in them, and they say vegan and gluten-free, but they're kind of expensive. Normally, I just look for chocolate chips that don't have milk in it, and you have to be careful because even dark chocolate chips sometimes have milk in it. So once you go plant-based / vegan, you need to actually read the back of every package to look for ones that don't have milk in it. Normally, I just go to the bulk section and I find them there. If you're from Canada and you go to Save-On and you find Foley's Pure Dark, those ones don't have milk in it, and it's way cheaper than buying a bag like this. Other thing is, which I didn't really get concerned about until a couple years into being plant-based, is that some sugar isn't actually vegan because they use bone char in the processing of it. So quite a bit of white sugar is actually not considered vegan. I don't know if that will matter to you right now, but you should definitely make sure it doesn't have milk ingredients in it. So another place you can buy them is at Superstore if you're from Canada. They're these ones, and these ones don't have milk in them, and the sugar is also vegan. I just don't buy that one because the package is quite big and I literally don't know moderation, so I'll eat the whole thing, and I find if I eat way too much chocolate, I get lots of zits, and I don't want zits, so I keep them to a minimum. Mix in those chocolate chippies and then get ready to roll them into cookie dough balls. So we're gonna just put some parchment paper in a container here just so that all of our balls don't stick to each other and we can put a couple of layers in there. So I'm just gonna take them and roll them in my hands into perfect bite-sized little cookie dough bites. This one's a little big, but we'll make the next one smaller. So you just wanna do this until they're all done, and when your hands get too sticky, you just want to rinse your hands a little bit and then start re-rolling, because I find you'll get a lot of cookie dough on your hand if you don't stop to wash halfway through the process. Then we're just going to seal up the container and bring them over to the freezer, so in the morning we can put them in our smoothie bowls and we can have a nice tasty cookie dough bite. If you want your cookie dough to be a little softer, you can keep them in the fridge instead of the freezer. Now we're going to turn the other half of the cookie dough into baked cookies. So put the rest of your mixture into the bowl. Then you're going to want to grab your baking powder and add in about a teaspoon. This is going to make the cookies rise. And if you're making the whole batch into cookies, you could do 2 teaspoons instead of 1. Then we're going to stir it in, and then you can add as many or as little chocolate chips as you would like. And if you taste the batter, you'll notice it's kind of salty from the baking powder. That's why we don't use the baking powder in the raw ball version. Say you make a mistake and you add too much liquid into the batter and it goes runny. It'll look more runny than this because this one is actually perfect texture. But say you add too much milk in, you can always add in some rolled oats and it'll help absorb the milk. Or you can just add them in if you want your cookies to be a little bit more filling or have an oatmeal texture to them. Now you want to get your tray and cover it with parchment paper so your cookies don't stick. Now we're just going to roll the cookie dough into balls and then put them on the tray and push them down a little bit to resemble a cookie shape. And you're going to do this till you're done with the batch. It'll make about 6 or 7, but remember this is only half the batch because I made the other half into cookie dough balls that I put in the fridge. So if you're making a full batch, it'll turn out to be probably close to 12 or 14. Now we're just gonna pop them in the oven and bake them for 20 minutes at 350 degrees until they're golden. Then take them out, let them cool down, and then they're ready. These cookies will be crispy on the outside and you'll bite into them and they'll be so soft and moist despite the fact that they always look dry. They're like super deceiving. These are all ready and they're so gooey and delicious. For some reason, the combination of the chickpea and the peanut butter just makes it taste like, you know, fresh, ooey gooey, like chocolate chip cookies you ate as a kid, or even now the ones that aren't gluten-free and aren't vegan. That's what these taste like, except for they're gluten-free and vegan. They're really the best, and I've actually made a little like recipe cheat sheet that you can download. I put the link in the description below. So you can save it on your phone and you can have access to the instructions and you can make these whenever you want and then you don't have to come back and watch the video all over again. And this is what the ones that we put in the freezer came out like. They're like a hard little piece that you can put on top of your smoothie bowls or in your smoothie bowls. Or if you even blend like bananas with soy milk and ice and maybe some cocoa powder, you could mix these in there afterwards and then they would be just like a tasty surprise. You can make this whole recipe into cookies, you make the whole recipe into this, or you can do like I did and split it in half. And like I said, check the description below to get a printable recipe card so you can save it right to your phone and you can make them whenever you want. If you guys enjoyed this video, feel free to like it and subscribe to my channel. I'll be putting out more videos like this with a ton of different recipes I eat while I'm plant-based and lots of health tips and kind of share with you my journey on how I went from feeling like a piece of shit to feeling really good thanks to a plant-based diet. See you next time.